Tottenham Hotspur 1, Aston Villa 2 in the first game of the day on Sunday from the Premier League. Mark Donaldson alongside Don Hutchison. Spurs took the lead. Villa came back and got all 3 points to prevent Spurs from potentially going second. Over the piece, Don, does the scoreline reflect what we saw?
I think it does. I think when you start at the very start of the game, and I thought Spurs started really well. They were aggressive. They pressed Villa back. They put them under pressure. They scored early. They had one disallowed. They were looking like they were going to score because Villa's back line was extremely high and with no pressure on the ball. And I thought it's only a matter of time before Spurs get their second. Then somehow, or for some reason, Spurs took their foot off the gas and allowed Villa back into the game. And then after about sort of 25, 30 minutes, I thought Villa grew into the game really well. Second half, I thought they were by far the better side, Aston Villa. Spurs ran out of options. The only out I can give Thomas Frank and Spurs fans is they are a young side, especially at the top end of the pitch, when sometimes you need the experience of Solanke, who's 28 and would have carried the team. Yes, they've still got loads of injuries, but far too many youngsters, which brings a little bit inconsistency. Over the piece, I thought Villa deserved their win.
It's been a roller coaster already for Aston Villa, and we've already, played 8 games of the season. That's all. At the start, it's like Villa are better than this. They just can't score. What did you make of Ollie Watkins starting on the bench today and Malin kind of playing that front role?
Yeah, he got interviewed before the game with Unai Emery, and he said like he wasn't 100% fit. He could have took a chance with Ollie Watkins, started him. He just thought it'd be better off starting Daniel Malin, trying to gauge how the game was going. Then he's always got that weapon of Ollie Watkins if needed. Proved to be the case. You're right when you talk about Villa. I mean, it was pretty doom and gloom at the start of the season. No wins in the first 5. And you start to think, right, they've lost a lot of players. So many forward wide players have gone out the door. The feeling after pre-season was a little bit doom and gloom. But now 3 wins on the spin off the back of Fulham and Burnley. I mean, that's a great away win against Spurs today. So all of a sudden, it's just amazing in football. After 8 games, 5 doom and gloom, 3 wins on the spin. The mood's now completely changed.
Isn't it just? But we live in a world where a defeat is end of days, the board. And then suddenly for Villa, they beat Bologna in the Europa League, 3-1 against Fulham, 2-0 at Feyenoord, 2-1 against Burnley, and now 2-1 at Spurs. And this is a game that featured 2 form sides because Spurs won at West Ham, beat Villarreal, drew at Brighton in that crazy game, beat Doncaster, drew against Wolves, drew against Bodo when they should have lost, and then won at Leeds. What can we read into these 2 teams before we get into today's game about the start to the season and what this result might do for the respective sides?
Well, it shouldn't really knock Tottenham. I mean, they were pretty flawless. I mean, I know they had a couple of draws along the way, but they were pretty flawless apart from the Bournemouth game, which Bournemouth can just, them and Crystal Palace can turn anyone over. So, yeah, for Spurs fans, that was a disappointing loss because, you know, they started the season really well. They won the first 2 games, and the Bournemouth was a little bit of a kick in the teeth and back down to earth. I wouldn't panic if I was a Spurs fan. I know it's disappointing. You're at home and you want to turn over one of your rivals. A Villa side that's, you know, it's not blessed with loads of firepower. So you want to turn them over, especially at home, and keep that momentum going. On the flip side of it, it's a poor one to take. If you're a Spurs fan, you'll be scratching your head tonight thinking, like, where do we go from here? It's always a bit doom and gloom after a defeat, but once you wake up tomorrow morning, you reset, go back into the Champions League, back into Premier League football. There's going to be more wins along the way. I just think when I looked at that Spurs start 11 tonight, the front 4, apart from Kudus, take him away from it. He's exceptional, but he's 25, so he's still pretty young. The other 3 are all like 20, 21, 22, so they're going to be inconsistent. But in terms of where the teams are at, I'm happy for Unai Emery because I thought Villa, you know, have made strides over the last couple of years to try and get the Champions League football. And it would have been a massive blow because I'm a Newcastle fan, Mark, as you know. And the last time we got into Champions League football, we finished 10th. And now we're back in the Champions League. We're still in 10th. So Villa are more or less the same. These smaller squads find it very difficult when you're playing European Champions League football to try and compete. So I think the Spurs fans don't panic. I think the Villa fans ride it now. 3 wins on the spin. Happy days.
There was a blow for Spurs just before kickoff when Christian Romero was ruled out. Kevin Danso came in for him. They weren't even thinking about that when Spurs took the lead in the 5th minute. Paulinho's done very well to keep the cross alive and head it back across goal. And it's a nice finish from Bentancur. What did you make of the goal? And what did you make of how Spurs played after that?
Well, the goal was brilliant, and the goal set the tone because they forced Villa back from a really high press, and they forced the corner, which they more or less scored from the second phase. Brilliant ball in from Kudus. As you know, when a ball gets whipped in, it's all about first contact. Villa didn't get any height and distance on their clearance, and then it got whipped in. Great, just trying to keep it alive at the far post. Kamara slightly switched off and just allowed Bentancur that half a yard. And then you're just thinking, like, right, it's all Spurs. Like the high line for Villa, that it's inevitable before Spurs score again. It looked like they were going to score one disallowed from VAR, but it looked like the way they start the game, it looked like there was only going to be one winner. Mm-hmm. If they got the second goal, then they didn't and took a step backwards. Then Villa, I think, just got a bit of momentum because of the scoreline. They thought, oh, okay, it's not the end of the world. We've lost an early goal, but we've recovered. Just take a little bit of time. The best thing when you lose a goal is not to concede a second one and then go under. Then you are really against it. So in any game, if you can keep it to one, you're still in it. And then they scored 1-1. And then second half, I thought they took over. I thought they took control. I then thought Spurs started to run out of ideas, which is a worry for Thomas Frank. That's a worry when you start to run out of ideas on the pitch. So when you look at the sort of flow of the game, where Spurs should have really put Villa away early on, they didn't, and allowed a good side back into the game. And then their experience, Villa, and quality just shone in the end.
Yeah, speaking of quality, what an equalising goal it was from Morgan Rogers. And good players don't become bad players overnight. Some of them just lose confidence. But once you get on that run, once you get momentum, remember the assist he got against Fulham, he got another assist against Burnley. But when he got that goal for England against Wales in the 3-0 victory recently, you just kind of thought he's got that swagger back. And this is my Spanish-speaking colleagues would describe it as a golazo. It was a touch.
Amazing goal. I mean, I've covered every Villa game from the start of the season. And I thought they'd come off the back of pre-season with one or two players that looked a little bit half a yard short, Watkins being one, Rogers being the other, because he's such a talent. Like I don't know about you when you watch players, and we're only critical. I am anyway, and I'm pretty sure you're the same in your commentary. You're only critical because you know players have got so much potential, and you want to see it. You want to see it brought out in them. So that's why sometimes you lean a little bit heavy on the likes of Morgan Rogers when he's not playing well, because the kid is a genius. He just needs to be sharp. Just needs to be lean and match fit and have that match tempo. Sometimes off the back of a pre-season where I think I've done about 17 in my career, sometimes you start, you hit the ground running, you fly, and sometimes you can't find your legs. Sometimes your legs feel really heavy, and it needs 2 or 3, 4 games to get into the rhythm and get your legs back again and your lungs back again. I think that's what I saw in Morgan Rogers at the start of the season. Now it's fair to say, not just off the goal today, but in terms of how he's been playing lately and playing for England, as you said, a special talent. And the goal today was brilliant. Phil Foden, I think, is the best in the league at taking the ball on the back foot. Morgan Rogers is a similar sort of play. He allows that ball to come across his body. He got it out of his body. He hit it sort of Ronaldo-like, where you get the middle to the top end of the ball, but he even sort of whipped it with a sort of instep. It wasn't like a laces strike. It was whipped. It was a brilliant finish. I mean, the goalkeeper had no chance. So Villa, when you look at those, and Buendia scored a fantastic goal as well, but when you look at the special players that they've got after losing, I mean, they lost so many players. They lost Moussa Diaby to Saudi. They lost Rashford. They lost so many forward-thinking players. It was like, it's going to damage them at some point, but they're just about now recovered. And you get those special players up to speed. I mean, they could be a threat, Villa. I think overall, in truth, what you saw from Villa and Tottenham today, you probably saw two sides that are not going to win the league. That's not rocket science, but they're going to be competing for between 4th and about 6th. So high expectations, but that's where they should be looking to finish. Try and nab the 4th position, if not 5th and 6th.
That's fair. European chasing, potentially maybe sneaking into a Champions League spot if England get a 5th one again. But two sides on their day that could be any other team in the league, including the top teams. And we live in an era now whereby it's not just about the starting 11, and it hasn't been for quite some time. It's about the strength and depth in your squad. And just after the hour mark, on came Buendia, on came Ollie Watkins. I did a game yesterday, Atletico Madrid, when they brought on 2 players that they were the ones that got the assist and got the goal. Yeah. Simeone setting up Almada for their 1-0 win over Osasuna. And this time, Buendia, who came on, along with Watkins, who you've explained could have started, but was going to get some game time. It's scored by Buendia. It's a great finish. It's good work by Digne. But how about this pass from Matty Cash?
Oh, incredible. Oh, incredible. Incredible. If that's one of the Real Madrid boys, if that's Toni Kroos or Luka Modric at AC Milan, we'd be waxing lyrical thinking that's like one of the best passes I've ever seen. These guys have got talent. And you mentioned the guys that come off the bench, and that's why it's important. That's why I mentioned Newcastle when they were in the Champions League and Villa in the Champions League. It's important that you've not just got a strong 11. The guys that came off the bench, Buendia, Watkins, Matson, Ross Barkley, talented players, game changers. But you're right in terms of the goal. I mean, when you analyse it, when you look back, it starts with Matty Cash sort of zinging it, top end, just above hip level, and he sort of strikes it. Beautiful strike. Goes out wide, gets laid off to Buendia. I think all the Spurs defenders thought Buendia was going to take half a touch or one touch and whip it in the box, but he didn't, and he didn't get closed down. And on his left foot, it was a brilliant strike. And you see the goalkeeper was just slightly unsighted, but it was a fantastic finish. That's when I then thought it was a test for Spurs. When you go 2-1 behind at home, it's always a kicker. When you're at home and the pressure's on to win a game and it goes against you, that's when you're looking for leaders. That's when you're looking for players who demand the ball and want the ball. Right, give it to me. We're 2-1 down. I'll take it. And that's what I thought, just going off-piece slightly back onto Spurs. With their inexperience, they didn't have enough leaders to want the ball in that last 10, 15 minutes where Villa did, and they showed their quality.
First defeat for Spurs since Bournemouth went to North London and won by 1-0 at the end of August. Look, we're all football fans. My team Hearts are top of the league right now. They're not going to stay there, probably. You just got to live in the moment. From an Aston Villa perspective, it's a great 3 points. From a Spurs perspective, it's one defeat. Don't get too down. You've got, I mean, if there's one game to pick you up, more from a fan's perspective. What's next, boys? It's a trip to Monaco in midweek. Oh, that'll do. That'll be all right.
Can I put a little downer if you're Spurs or Villa, though? Can I tell you their fixtures? If you want to be a little bit doom and gloom, don't be doom and gloom, Spurs and Villa fans. Don't be. But I'm just going to read out Spurs fixtures. Everton away. Hill Dickinson, they've started really well. Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal. So a tough run for Spurs coming up, but that's when you've got to show your mettle. That's when you'll be tested. Villa, now 3 wins on the spin. They're next to Man City and Liverpool. So hard fixtures, but that's the Premier League for you. That's why we say it's the best league in the world, because you're tested every single week.
Who's got the better squad to cope with their respective European challenges, Spurs or Villa?
I would say if Spurs have got all their players back, Spurs have got by far the stronger squad, but they've got a horrific injury list and they need them boys back. There's about 7 or 8 of them that are all potentially first-team players like Kulusevski, who's been missing for an age, James Maddison, Solanke. There's so many players on that treatment table that need to get match fit again, because with them, they've got a real chance of going quite, not deep in the Champions League, but they can go far and they can get as far as they can with this new format. It's possible, but they can certainly be back in contention for top 4, stroke 5th again with those players back. If they haven't got them back, I keep saying then you're relying on youth and you're relying on inconsistency. So as it stands, I would lean towards Villa only just because of the injury list that Spurs have got. If everyone's fit and everyone's off the Villa treatment table and everyone's off the Spurs treatment table, by far Spurs, because I argued that fact when Thomas Frank was taken over and I championed him for the Man United job. And even then I looked at the Man United squad and I looked at the Spurs squad and I still think Spurs squad's better than Man United. So they've got a better squad than most if they can get them fit.
Villa have also got this coach that's he's done a few things in Europe in his time, Unai Emery. I was just looking. They play Go Ahead Eagles away. It's in a city called Deventer. It's in eastern Netherlands during the week. I think that's Thursday because it's the Europa League. Look, Spurs are just delighted to be back in the Champions League. They're probably not going to win it. What chance of Aston Villa with a deep run in this competition that they're in?
Every chance. I'd look at Roma, and I think they're one of the strongest sides in the tournament. But, I think if you're Aston Villa, I think why not go and try and win it? It's like Crystal Palace in the conference. Why not go and win it? These Premier League teams are strong, but you've got to respect the opposition. You've got to respect some of the teams that are playing in the Europa League as well. So you can't just be very insular, which I think a lot of people are in England, thinking, well, yeah, Aston Villa are in the Europa League. They're going to go and win it. There's some very, very good sides right across the board. So, yeah, if you're Villa, you want to be confident and you want to be arrogant and you want to back yourself, but also at the same time respect the opposition that are out there, because some very, very good sides in the tournament.
What about Spurs? Because they had a good opening win over Villarreal. It was relatively comfortable. They somehow got a point in the Arctic Circle against Bodo, despite being outplayed and could have been 4-0 down in that game.
They got
did, but do you know what? They're still unbeaten.
Yeah.
side with one draw and one defeat away from home. Should the target for Spurs, of course, it's top 24 and getting through to the knockout stages, but Spurs got a chance of top 8 and potentially getting a bye for that playoff round after Christmas?
You know what, Mark? I think it's nigh impossible to try and look that far ahead. I really do, because anything can happen with injuries and form. Sure. And, you know, yeah, you want to try and have a look at the bigger picture. I get it. And the question's a valid one. Why not try and finish there? But I think PSG proved last year it's not the end of the world if you don't. They had a horrendous start to the Champions League, only just scraped through them. And I think Real Madrid at the same time, and PSG went on and won the tournament. The Bodo game was a contrast to sort of today's game, if you like, where, you know, we watched the game, me and you, and Spurs got pumped in that game. I mean, absolutely pumped. They hit the crossbar. It felt like a million times in the game, Bodo. It felt like Spurs were like throwing everything at it in the last 20 minutes. That was credit to them because they showed lots of character. They didn't go under. Bodo missed a penalty, I think, in that game as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they got hammered in the game. But what I took from that game was loads of positives. Me and you chatted, I think, on the show the day after, where loads of positives, because sometimes you can go away from home and get battered and get pumped in game, but then somehow you've got to find the character and you've got to find the heart and desire and the grit to hang in there and not only get a draw, go and win the game. So there was loads of positives when you look at the bigger picture. So, yeah, I mean, why not if you Spurs? It's hard to try and predict whether they'll finish top 8. The chances are probably not, but every chance of finishing in the playoffs.
Yeah, they'll just focus on the respective trips to Monaco and also to the Netherlands in midweek. A first away win for Aston Villa in the Premier League since they won at Bournemouth on the 10th of May. And they did it by coming from a goal down at Spurs, who suffer their first defeat since the end of August. A good one to watch. This one finishes Spurs 1, Aston Villa 2. And a reminder on the full-time whistle of Liverpool against Manchester United. We'll be back here for a full recap. Bye for now.